you go. I'd like to call this regular council meeting to order. Before we proceed further, I want to acknowledge that the land upon which we are located and holding this meeting is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe people, many of whom continue to reside in our community and add to the richness of our community life. Madam Clerk, invocation, we all rise for that? All rise for the invocation.
We meet to serve our community and endeavor to be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Let us be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, so that in our deliberations we may display imagination, wisdom, and courage, and the will to do our work for the good of all.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, the roll call.
All members of council are present, Your Worship.
Thank you. We have an addendum this evening. There's a revision to Bylaw 42-2022, which relates to the setting of the 2022 tax rates and to levy taxes for the year 2022. And there's also an addition, Bylaw 46-2022, which is to permit the town to accept and dedicate parkland at 3399 North Shore Drive. A few announcements. There are a number of resolutions on this evening's agenda with respect to special days, special weeks, special months that are coming up. And they were all preceded by Earth Day last week. And last week, I have to say that on Friday, Saturday, I think even on Sunday, and some businesses the week before, took a great deal of time and energy and a lot of pride in our community by doing community cleanups. The ones that registered with the town of Fort Erie were the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee, the Fort Erie Canucks, the Rotary Club, and Canadian Niagara Power and Airbus. But aside from those organizations, I think we've all been around the town and we've seen where there have been cleanups taking place on a variety of roads. And if you were out on the weekend, you probably saw people, older people, younger people, picking up garbage, and now there are quite a few garbage bags lined up along the roads throughout town. Those garbage bags will be picked up, and I have to say that we owe a great debt of gratitude to all of the individuals who helped to tidy up our home, because this is our home. And when we go around our home, just like being in your house, you like to think things are neat and tidy, and particularly if people come to visit, you want to put your best foot forward. So I want to thank all the individuals who participated in any of the cleanups over the past several days, and most especially on Earth Day. Thursday is the National Day of Mourning, and there will be a ceremony held, as there is each year here in Fort Erie, over at the Workers' Monument by the pond. That takes place here at 11:45, and there will be representatives from the Niagara Labour Council here. I believe there will be some municipal employees, and everyone is invited to attend to commemorate those who lost their lives or have been seriously injured in job-related activities. We also have coming up over the next little while the Parental Alienation Awareness Day, which is today, the National Accessibility Week, which is from May the 29th to June the 4th, National Volunteer Week, which is from April 24th, which was yesterday, until the end of this week, April 30th. We have Community Living Month, which is May, and we'll be hearing from people from Community Living this evening. We have National Pride Week from May the 28th to June the 5th. We have World Migratory Bird Day, which is May the 14th. And I know that there's one other, I think Family and Children's Services has a special event taking place, and we're going to hear from someone here this evening, and so we'll hear what that's all about when we get there. So those are the announcements for this evening, and that takes us to declarations of pecuniary interest. Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I have two this evening. The The first is for PDS 26-2022. That's the Animal Care and Control Services Award of Contract, as the company I work for provides contracted services to the Fort Erie SPCA. And also that ties into 9.22B on the agenda, the consent agenda. That's to receive the Fort Erie SPCA Board of Director minutes. Same reason, company I work for provides contracted services to the Fort Erie SPCA.
Okay, so the minutes are part of the consent agenda, so we will take 9.2.2B, so we'll remove those from the consent agenda when we get to that. And the other matter is outside the consent agenda, so it'll be dealt with when we get to it. Are there any other disclosures of pecuniary interest? There being none, then there are a couple of upcoming public meetings. One is a proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment. That will, with respect to 97 Gorham Road, that will take place on Monday, May the 9th, 2022 at 6 p.m. here in the council chamber. And the information report for that application will be available on our website on May the 4th. We also have a proposed zoning bylaw amendment for 3914 Alexandra Road. Again, May the 9th, 2022, 6 p.m. and same date in terms of when the information report will be available. That will be on May the 4th, 2022 on our website at 5 p.m. That then takes us to the Regional Councillor's report. Good evening, Councillor Encina.
Good evening, Mayor Redekop, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to see everybody again. It really is. I will try and keep this brief. I know you have a busy agenda tonight. Last November, Regional Council directed Regional Chair Jim Bradley to send a letter to the Minister of Health requesting action and intervention to reduce the offload delay that Niagara EMS were having at the Niagara hospitals. At our last meeting, I believe it was last week, the same issue was brought up again because it was never addressed by the province. Niagara EMS are now in a position that they are in a crisis situation requiring 3 ambulances for a 90-day period. The request was made because there has been a dramatic surge in requests for ambulance services combined with the increased offload times at the hospitals, putting a critical strain on the service. The paramedics actually have to wait until the hospital has actually had someone take that patient over. And they've been there, paramedics have been there for up to 8 hours, if not longer, which takes them off the road for that amount of time. The Niagara EMS had requested $750,000 for 2 24-hour ambulances and 1 12-hour ambulance for the 90-day period. Hopefully this is going to decrease the response time, and it will be reviewed after 90-day period to see if they'll have to continue it. And it was pointed out that in 2021, Niagara EMS lost over 21,000 hours of ambulance time to offloads, which equates to over $2.4 million of taxpayers' money. The offload delays not only take paramedics off the road, but has a major impact on the paramedics themselves. They have to work longer hours, their breaks are shorter, and at the point now they are being ordered to work overtime. The funding is going to come from the Taxpayer Relief Reserve and hope that the wait times for ambulances will decrease, averting critical ambulance shortages. I didn't write it in here, I'm sorry about this, Madam Clerk. There was a point in time, I was contacted this afternoon where someone had to wait 6 hours to get an ambulance to show up. So you can imagine 6 hours of that person, 1, making that phone call, and then 2, being told they have to wait. So those are the things that are trying to be addressed now.
So did you just say, Councillor Encina, for clarity, that someone called an ambulance and it was 6 hours before there was a response?
They were told the wait was going to be up to 6 hours.
So the answer is yes.
Yeah. Regional Chair Jim Bradley was directed to have an in-person meeting with the Minister of Health to not only request compensation for the money Niagara residents had paid, but to address the shortcomings at the hospitals. The Niagara Regional Housing Master Plan will be going forward to Regional Council next month. The plan will outline the way forward for the region and municipalities to address the housing crisis that we find ourselves in. I look forward to the final product, having it being released. And I can say that Niagara Region as a whole, we are looking at least 450 housing units per year for the next 10 years that they're going to have to come up with. This plan will actually give us a roadmap of how we can do that and what we need to do. Plans are also being discussed at Niagara Regional Housing about the region-owned property in Fort Erie, and I will ensure that council is kept up with on the progress, one with the Gilmore Road properties and also another property in town. The federal government, through the Employment Social Development Grant, has given the Niagara Region a grant of $1.3 million, and the funds were going to go directly to supporting the efforts in addressing local homeless needs. We only get I think it's $2.4 or $2.5 million from the federal government to combat homelessness in the Niagara Region, which really isn't a whole lot. And finally, the Niagara official plan is once again going before council. It would be the statutory public meeting will be held this Thursday for the official plan. I'm sure that will be very interesting, to say the least. Thank you.
Will be. I'm sure you'll be tuned in. That's
Thank you.
That's all of that information is very helpful, and the one about the ambulance, that's particularly troubling, and perhaps we can follow that up with with the region. Any members of council have any questions of Councillor Encina? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop, to Mr. Encina. Mr. Encina, you and I have talked about this, that the residents of Black Creek, Stevensville, and Douglastown would like to have an information meeting with the Niagara Region in regards to waste management, in regards to the facilities that are taking care of the waste management. And the latest thing I've received from the region not that long ago indicates that our wastewater management thing is at 71% capacity, which is the highest in the entire region in regards to reaching 100%, which you don't want to reach, right? Much higher than a lot of the other wastewater treatment plants and areas. So I'm just wondering if you had any luck getting a meeting for the community to interact with the region and to ask questions.
I have talked to them. I have been assured that there is not going to be an issue, but I will set that meeting up. What they're saying is they can divert the wastewater to Anger Avenue. So there's never really going to be an issue with regards to the lagoon. They've spent the $4 million now out there. Now, there is no increase that they're not going to increase another pond. I believe you mentioned that before too, that you had heard that. Mr. Tripp is away this week, but I will call the commissioner and I will set something up. And if you'd like, I'll go through you at Black Creek.
Okay, that would be wonderful, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. So will the residents.
Anything further, Councillor Noyes? Any other councillors? Thank you very much, Councillor Encina.
Thank you.
See you Thursday evening.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that takes us then to presentations and delegations. And the first item is something that is actually quite impressive. We have 4 young people here who joined the 2022 Canadian National Taekwondo Championship. They're members of the local Jung's Niagara Taekwondo located here in Fort Erie. And they participated in an event recently and came away with some significant rewards. So Enzo Urbaniak, who is a member of the Fort Erie Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee, won a gold medal in a female cadet division. She attends Our Lady of Victory Elementary School, Catholic Elementary School. Charlie Grummett won a gold medal in the male cadet division. He attends Stevensville Public Elementary School. Taya Scott won a silver medal in a female juniors division. She goes to Greater Fort Erie Secondary School. And Mason Ryan came in fourth in the male youth division. He attends John Brandt Public School in Ridgeway. Both Enza and Charlie will be joining Team Canada to represent our country. That in itself is a fantastic accomplishment. And it's a tribute to those who have been training these young athletes over the years. As an example, Enza has a second-degree black belt. She's been training with Youngs for 6 years. Charlie has a first-degree black belt, which I presume means that his mother doesn't give him a lot of trouble. She works for the town. He's been training as well for 6 years. Taya is a third-degree black belt. She's been training for 13 years. And Mason has a first-degree black belt. He's been training for 5 years. This is a martial art that is designed specifically for defense. And it's not an aggressive art, so one need not be concerned about any of these young people initiating any problems, but they certainly will conclude any initiated difficulties that you might get engaged in. Both Enza and Charlie will be attending the Pan Am Junior and Cadet Championship held in Costa Rica this year. And I'm not sure, do they have to qualify to go to the World Championships in Bulgaria? Or do they? They've already qualified. So they'll also be attending in July the championships, World Taekwondo Championships in Bulgaria. I would imagine that that's changed some of the family's travel plans for this summer. And if not, come on, parents, get with it. So I'm going to ask Councillor McDermott to assist me to hand out the certificates. Both Councillor McDermott and I have been at the studio some time ago. Neither one of us seriously injured ourselves, but that's the most I can say. First, I'll call up Enzo Urbaniak. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Charlie Grummett. Something for you too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good job, John. Okay. Taya Scott. Congratulations, Taya. And Mason Ryan. And I can confirm that each and every one of them has a very strong handshake. Thank you to each of you, and best of luck to Enza and Charlie in your next competitions, and for all of you in whatever competitions you enter into and in your continued training. It's great to know that we've got such wonderful athletes and wonderful youth in our community. Thank you. And thank you to those who have spent the time and energy training them, and to the parents who have committed the time to make sure that their children get to those training sessions and to wherever else they go. It truly is a family commitment, and you're to be commended. Thank you. Okay, and you're at liberty to leave if you wish. You don't need to stick around. It's up to you if you wish to stay, but some of us would rather be someplace else.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, our next delegation is Soraya Marashi on behalf of Community Living. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
I understand that you were practicing here.
Yes, I was looking through it all.
Good.
It's my first time.
Yes, can that podium be lowered, Tim, do you know, or Kelly? See if this works better for you. It should be.
Sorry, I'm short.
No problem, I have a similar challenge.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop and members of council for allowing me to speak today. I'm nervous.
Don't be nervous. You're doing very well.
I'm sorry, can I take a few moments?
Of course. Yeah. Did you need a little drink of water?
Hey, you, it's good. Come on, good. You're doing okay. Come on, I'll back and help you, okay? Okay, małe zampisze. Beza. And I feel beza? Becho. Małe zampisze.
Would you like us to go to,
Małe zampisze. Yeah.
would you like us to go to the next delegation and then? You want to go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay.
Małe zampisze.
It's pretty intimidating, isn't it?
Becho, nie się kitał po nam.
Okay. I've been here before, I just never read.
Well, there weren't any people here.
My name is Soraya Marashi. Did you know that Community Living for Erie is celebrating 65 years of service to the Fort Erie community this June? 65 years ago, on June 30th, 1957, the founding meeting was held to develop a support group for parents with children with intellectual disabilities in Fort Erie. A small ad placed in the Fort Erie Review reached out to others interested in establishing a school. In council chambers provided by the town, a handful of people, including Community Living's original founders, met to develop a support group. This founding meeting was the first step made in the journey to conclusion. Fortunately, 65 years ago, there were parents and others who felt the lack of educational opportunities to children with disabilities was intolerable. In a few areas of Ontario, volunteers have managed to establish day schools for children. Community Living Fort Erie founders were determined to do the same. Parents established a support group. There was no support staff to help. Parental relief was not available. These dedicated founding parents did all the work. Today, Community Living Fort Erie supports over 250 individuals and their families in the greater Fort Erie area. This year, Community Living Fort Erie is celebrating 65 years of community involvement, helping people with developmental disabilities show positive potential in this community. I am one of those young adults benefiting from having support from this wonderful organization. In 2020, I became a part of the Community Living Passport program. What is Passport? Passport is a community living Fort Erie program that helps young adults to experience different community activities, like going to the movies, going out to restaurants, going to supporting events, shopping, working out at a gym, or going to music lessons, just to name a few. For me, some of my favorite things to do are to play basketball, go to paint night, and concerts. And I really enjoy socializing at the Cristobal Cafe in Crystal Beach. The Cristobal Cafe will be displaying 3 of my paintings with the option to purchase next month, if you are interested. Community Living Fort Erie has helped me to get through the COVID-19 pandemic. They helped me to purchase a laptop that I used to go on social media to stay connected with long-distance family and high school friends. They supported me to stay active in my community safely when I was able to be out of lockdown. Lockdown was terrible, but community living made it easier to go through. I went through bullying and harassment as a teenager, and I felt depressed and insecure. My teachers and support staff made me feel like I was worthy and helped to increase my self-esteem. Even though the hate was going on, I did not let it tear me down. With encouragement and support from Community Living Fort Erie, I went through the hate and came out strong. They helped me become empowered. I know that I am worthy, and it does not matter what other people think. I am transitioning from a teenager to an adult, and through this self-discovery path, I have learned with support and a positive attitude, I can overcome anything. Post-pandemic, with the help of Community Living Fort Erie, I will get more involved with my community, learn more about my adult self, and develop more friendship with others my age. Personally, I am very grateful to be a part of such a caring and supportive organization. Thank you for declaring May Community Living Month in the town of Fort Erie and for continuing to promote an inclusive community for people with developmental disabilities. Now, is there any questions?
Thank you very much, Soraya. I can tell you that we will be proclaiming this evening that May is Community Living Fort Erie Month, and we will be raising the flag. I'm not sure what the date is right now. It's in my schedule, and hopefully you'll be there. Hopefully I'll see you there.
It's May 2nd, and then yes, I will be there.
Were you going to bring any of your paintings to sell out on the front area?
Yes, they'll be at the Cristobal Cafe next month if you are interested.
Thank you. Now, before you walk away, I don't know if any of the councillors wanted to ask you any questions, because you did ask if we have any questions.
Yes.
Looks like Councillor McDermott would like to ask you a question.
I really don't want to ask a question. I just like to say what a wonderful ambassador you are for community living. And it's very intimidating coming to council. I know my first day here was very intimidating, so I just want to thank you for your presentation tonight. I think it was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Thank you very much, Sarai, and Councillor McDermott is absolutely correct. You're a wonderful ambassador.
Can I take the cup of water or something?
Of course, yes. You may take that, and we'll see you on May the 2nd.
Okay, see you then.
All right, our next delegation is Rhiannon Burkholder, who's a member of the board of Fax Niagara Foundation. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Rhiannon Burkholder, as I say, and I'm a director on the Family and Children's Service Foundation Board. I'm here to bring you good news. It's a tough act to follow just now. You did a great job. And I'm here to ask for your support for a day. The day is actually June 12th, and it's called Mount Mew Lemonade Day, and it's a community-driven event. We do have a slide presentation, so I see that you have a long agenda, so if we can cue up the slide, and then after that, I can answer any questions. Oh, I didn't know I was doing that. Thank you.
Now, which one do you want? She got two. The linked one or the non-linked?
The linked one or the non-linked one? The linked one.
Yeah, I actually think I got one good one here earlier. Is this
Yeah.
one? Is that fine? Okay.
Yeah, the video's a good one, thank you.
Okay. So what I'll do. Is that good?
Yeah.
And do you want to forward it?
No.
Okay, just press that button right there.
thank you.
Oh,
Okay. So as we can see, it's Sunday, June 12th, and it's Mountain View Lemonade Day with the Family and Children's Services of Niagara. And what we are hoping to do, is support not students, sorry, I'm also a trustee, so I just slipped that, support the children to go to camp. And so with the proclamation that we're hoping that Fort Erie will give us, and maybe possibly, I don't know if you have any chance of getting the Peace Bridge lit up in yellow. We're also doing Niagara Falls has agreed to do yellow on that day, and so has Welland offered to do the bridge. So just putting that out there now. So Kids Helping Kids, this is not the video though, is it? Will we go into the video? And I don't want to read everything to you. So on Sunday, June 12th, teams of kids, we're hoping for teams, so it's a collective. We have 100, and they'll be spread out throughout Niagara, stands. And we're hoping, so if your street is together, or a Taekwondo, or any group, get together and we're asking for donations. So would this go? Sorry? Yeah, can we please? I'm sorry, I'm not really obviously catching onto this.
it's all good. All right.
Yeah, there we go.
You want that one, right?
Thank you. There it is.
So a couple years ago, my sister and I started a lemonade stand, and it was just all about we wanted to raise money, and then we got the idea that the money should go to sending a kid to camp.
Hi, I'm Caroline Paul-Grabier, President of the FACS Foundation Board. Every day we work with the FACS agency and the hard work that they do to bring great quality services and programs to the children across the Niagara region. For the past 2 years, COVID has taken a toll on every family, and no more so than the families that we serve at FACS. Summer camps give great lifelong memories, but most importantly, it helps build social skills and self-confidence.
Hi, I'm Mark Bassiano with the Mountain View Building Group, and I'm honored and excited to be here today as a partner with Family and Children's Services to aid them in their crucial role as they protect children and strengthen families throughout our region. We're really excited to be part of this new initiative, which is really aimed to engage families, particularly young people, to get involved, create awareness in our communities, raise badly needed dollars, and to have some fun along the way. I really want to encourage you to get involved and do your part.
In 2022, our goal is to have 100 stands, and every stand to raise $1,000. It's a big, big goal, but we know we can do it. $100,000 is going to create 400 plus big smiles next summer. We hope you'll help us out.
On Sunday, June 12th, my sister and I will be hosting Mountain View Lemonade Stand. Please help us and proclaim Sunday, June 12th as Mountain View Lemonade Day.
I want to thank you in advance for all your support in something that truly will make a material difference in so many lives across the Niagara region. Please join us on Sunday, June 12th for Mountain View Lemonade Day. Cheers, guys.
the rest. Thank you. As you can see, Jaden did a better job at explaining it than I did, so. Okay, 12-year-olds that figure it out better. You're making me feel better anyway.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. And the next one is just.
Okay, great. And as you see, the Summer Smiles is because of our generous donations that we're able to do this and send, I think it's hopefully about 400 children to camp for this summer, and they've missed out, as everybody has. This is a good news thing, and we're hoping that this year we have overnight camps, we have day camps, and we have things that children can go to. So there's going to be 100 teams, that we say, and each one will, look how pretty they look, nice lemonade stands. So we're hoping to have groups together. As you see, we only have 100. And so we're hoping, so you see Fort Erie, we'd like to have 6 stands in Fort Erie, so 6 groups together. And it is kids helping kids. So this is a child initiative program to pay back and to do some community support. And there's all sorts of teaching tools here for our students that we can help other children to succeed. So we're liking to ask if you could please proclaim June 12th as Mountain View Lemonade Day. And registration is happening now, just so people know, and you can register at that right there up here, and we're hoping if you can put it on your website or any media information. It's going out to most of the councils, and we're going to go to Region actually, so you'll be seeing it again. And just to make sure that we're asking for everybody's support in this day. Thank you, if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Burkholder. Have you been in contact with the Peace Bridge Authority about the possibility of?
No, I haven't, but I have a Family and Children's Services Communication Director, and he might have more information on that.
Yes, so sorry, we haven't reached out yet, but we plan to, absolutely.
Okay, let me know if you run into any difficulties. I should think you'll get great cooperation from the Peace Bridge Authority, but let me know. And yeah, that's pretty exciting, and we will be passing a resolution later this evening. Are there any members of council that have any questions of Ms. Burkholder? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop, to the presenter. Thank you for your presentation. Where are the camps located? Is there a particular camp that the kids go to? Is it all over Ontario, or is it?
I believe it is, but I can't actually answer that question, but I don't know if again, Brett, you could come on up here with me, man, before I sink.
No, not at all. The camps are primarily located in the Niagara Region, so we send children to day camp.
Step forward so that we can catch you on the mic. And your name is?
Sorry, I'm Brett Sweeney, Director of Communications for FACS Niagara.
Thank you.
So the camps are primarily located in Niagara, so we have a number of summer day camps that kids go to, as well as some other ones, and they would take some trips out of region, I'm sure, as part of their work. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other councillors? Thank you very much, Ms. Burkholder. Mr. Sweeney.
And thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. Okay, that takes us to our final delegation. Ian Donnell, on behalf of the owners of 4197 Erie Road. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors all. I know that you have, this is not my first time in front of council, and I'm sure you've had lots of delegations. Normally the delegations come and tell you what they think you should know and how you got it wrong. I have a different approach to this, and I want to tell you how that works. We sent you some 500 pages of materials. I appreciate it's not the most tantalizing material to read, but it pretty well lays out everything that's going on with regard to short-term rentals. And I understand that the council is still working on their ultimate decision on how these things are going to go. However, I do have a syllabus or an outline of where I think I'd ask you to look. I certainly am not looking this evening, nor are my clients, and they're sitting here in the court, in the chambers, Darlene Giovanni and Sherry Redekop, and they are the human face behind 1200172 Canada Inc. it's so nice always to realize that when you see a numbered company or corporation, there's actually people behind it. They're members of your community. They purchase properties here. They want to be meaningful members. And so as I promised earlier, what we want to talk about, I'm trying to fix some communication problems because there have been some communication problems. They could be ours, they could be yours, they could be somebody else's. But we have compiled, I think it's 497 pages of materials that we think are a talking point. And we would certainly like to enter into that talking point with the town, with the city, with people that matter so that we are part of what's going on. The nub of what our presentation is about is that we are of the opinion that we can present ourselves as being grandfathered as the new legislation or ideas of how you're going to deal with it come about, that we should be considered grandfathered. Now, tab 1, and I know you have all these materials, and thankfully I see no one brought in the big binder like I have, tab 1 is just going over the email correspondence, and you can see that there has been some meaningful correspondence. There's some meaningful discussions, and there have also been some misunderstandings along the way where different reports were sent out that shouldn't have been, or there was a representation, there was a license or it wasn't a license. All these things are put together, and I've included all the emails. Unlike, well, Mr. Mayor, you're a lawyer also. Sometimes lawyers put together materials that is missing certain key materials. I put every piece of material and correspondence that I knew was available so that we can have a fulsome discussion. And I should continue on that I'm not looking for a decision tonight. I'm not looking for anything other than a chance to set the record straight, if you would, and have all the materials that we'd like council to consider when they're moving ahead before council. I have the different things. So tab 1 is all the correspondence. Tab 10 are the offense notices that have been going back and forth. Tab 3 are media releases that the town has put forward. Tab 4 is a minutes of January council meeting. Tab 14 is a report on 04/2021, dated October 21st, short-term rental report, pilot program. Tab 7 is our application. Tab 11 is our argument for grandfathering, and I'll come back to that. Tab 2 is the Planning Act materials. Tab 9, I think, is the most important one because it is the index, if you would, to follow where we're coming from. The timeline, what's happened, where we're at, and where that. We want to really restart the whole program because it's been done piecemeal, and no disrespect to ourselves and or anyone else involved. If council has a fulsome representation of what we're talking about, it makes the discussion so much easier, and it makes for talking points. No one wants a review in another forum. Nobody wants to go ahead. We want to be good corporate citizens. We want to be good people. That's why I gave you the names of the people. We're not a corporation other than to hold the property. And when we're looking at all the things that transpire, I want to just underscore that we are on fours, all fours with the town. We want to attract tourism. We want to renew the interest in this area, which in every vacation area in Ontario has suffered through COVID. We want to be part of the local business and trades. We want to increase the economic growth, and we want to build and strengthen a relationship with the community. And in doing that, sir, we put together this booklet. As I said, I didn't come to convince anyone tonight. I came hopefully to reset the clock, have all the material in front of everyone, and ask council to move forward with discussions with ourselves, through myself or through your council, however you wish to do it, so that we can have a fulsome discussion and hopefully come to a resolution that suits all of us. Subject to any questions, sir, you might have, or anyone else in the council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Donald. Any members of council have any questions? I noticed you did receive a response from the town's lawyer, Jennifer Sturton, in response to yours of March the 1st, 2022, in which you made the suggestion that there was some ambiguity in some of the documentation, some of the media releases, et cetera. Ms. Sturton has requested that you provide her with particularization of the ambiguity. Have you had an opportunity to do that yet?
I will.
I think you should.
The ambiguity with respect to her, and she's not here tonight, so it's not fair to me saying, other than on a fair read, there seem to be inconclusive comments made, and I'm certainly more than willing to address it. I didn't come here looking to start an argument or even involved in an argument. I really come with, and the palms up, material provided. We would like to discuss and show the council why we should be considered grandfathered and find out what terms we have to do to participate and make these matters go ahead. We want to grow with the community.
Thank you. Any members of council? Councillor Noyes?
Thank you, Mayor Redekop, through you sorry for
I'm just going to move this up if I can, if I'm allowed to.
In regards to how many, currently people you represent have one short-term rental, right?
It's classed as one short-term rental. Initially, when these matters were put before, in 2021, we'd asked for two. We were told that we weren't entitled to two. It was one address, therefore it was one location. Our application was put in on that basis as one unit.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so you're only asking for the one, and
Well, actually, we'd ask for more if we could have it, but we're kind of caught on that bind. And back to the mayor was saying about some talk about the ambiguity. There's ambiguity in the materials that the lawyers asked to see. There's ambiguity in the comments. We're asked to apply for license. We're not. I think in fairness, I'm now detracting from what I said. We come with our palms up. We want to discuss resolution.
if I can continue, from the information we received that's been condensed, it doesn't look like that the second unit did not meet fire code.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you. I apologize.
That the second unit that you're hoping to obtain a short-term rental did not meet, there were some safety concerns. Did not have the proper fire separation at the time, and still does not.
My understanding, and not to be at odds, my understanding is the fire department was there. We're satisfied. My information from looking for the materials was that we were told we were not going to be entitled to a second unit, and we applied then as one. We certainly would be more than happy to revisit it and apply for two if that option was available.
Well, again, that's not my question, but I'm just reading here that the inspection indicated that the lower dwelling unit did not have proper fire separation and therefore could not be used. But there was a suggestion on how you go about fixing this, but that still has not happened to date.
My understanding is there have been some renovations made. I'm not a contractor. I can only tell you that we are very desirous of being on good terms with the city and making sure that if there are extra fire protections necessary and we can apply for a second unit, you can be sure that those things will be done.
How many demerit points does a property that does have a short-term rental have?
My understanding, it depends. We're looking at that. It's one of the ambiguities we were wondering about. The one was for operating with a license, and then there was something under the Restart program from the Ontario government, which doesn't appear to have a demerit point system to it. And on top of that, we then received letters saying we were entitled to apply for a license, and if we had demerit points, we weren't. We paid the fines through the taxes. There was never a hearing. This is the sort of thing that I'm talking about that through no fault of anyone, it's just been fraught with misunderstanding, and I come here tonight to try to sort through the misunderstandings and start over.
If I can continue, I don't misunderstand this. I would say I understand that the fines, whether you pay the fines or not, the demerit points stay on record. Do you not understand that?
With the greatest respect through Mr. Mayor to yourself, I understand the process. It's looking at the materials that are provided, the Restart program from the Ontario government shouldn't have had any demerit points to it, and we were notified. I'm certainly, Councillor, I'm not looking to argue with you. I understand the process. We might have a difference of opinion how to interpret it, but I do understand the process.
All right, and thank you. I'm not going to ask anything further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other councillors? So, Mr. Donald, I think the town's position is quite clearly set forth in the letter from Ms. Sturton. The distinction between what is a non-conforming use and what isn't in terms of zoning as opposed to regulatory bylaw, I think is clearly set out. However, appreciate you coming forward, appreciate your client's desire to move forward. in order to get a second unit, you know that there has to be at least a rezoning of the property. You understand that?
If it's not grandfathered, yes, sir.
Okay.
And the letter from the town's lawyer said, rules are rules, and with the greatest respect, if rules were just rules without a chance to be interpreted by the council and/or the government, none of us would be necessary.
Well,
I'm looking, sir, to provide more material. I'm certainly not here in any way trying to argue. I really, all our materials before the board, before the council, and to hopefully restart communication so that we can work ahead.
yeah, you're certainly entitled to come before us on behalf of your clients. You've done that. We're certainly familiar with what we've done because we've been engaged in this for the last couple of years. And so we'll take it from there. Thank you very much for coming out, sir. Councillor Lubberts?
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Redekop. Thank you very much for your presentation. Getting back to the short-term rentals and going back when they first started to emerge in Fort Erie, it was my understanding that we as a council and the community members were going to work together to come up with some rules and regulations for short-term rentals. And so I've been paying attention, and I've been participating, and I've been watching this whole process evolve. So my question is, what is it that you're looking to be grandfathered in? Because we're still in the process of putting together the actual bylaw. We're working, we had some pilot programs and certain things, right? So it's been my opinion that we haven't actually developed an actual bylaw that is going to work and stand. Everything is piloted, so it's subject to change.
So questions, Councillor?
No, I don't understand what it is that you're trying to grandfather yourselves with. What is it that we have to grandfather to your client?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Sir, if there was no bylaws in place, then whatever's happening is happening, and that's pretty well trite municipal law. When bylaws are put in place, from the day the bylaw is accepted, that's the rule. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm not taking away from what I said about rules or rules, but that's the guideline, if you would, the rule. The fact that there's a pilot project underway where, if you would, trying to hold our spot and saying, if and when the bylaws are put in place, and if and when the bylaws and the pilot projects are made firm, and if we're not within what's the acceptable way of doing things, that we were doing it pre the bylaw, which is normally the argument made for grandfather.
So, Mr. Donnell and Councillor Lubberts, we're getting into the discussion about the law. You're quite right, I'm a lawyer. Jennifer Sturton is a lawyer, you're a lawyer. We can all have different views on this, and this isn't really the place to be discussing what the law is or how it applies. Your folks have remedies, your clients have remedies if they're not satisfied with how the town deals with them, and the the council will proceed as we feel appropriate, having regard to the interests of the community.
Mr. Mayor, I was only asking the council's question.
No, I get that. Thank you very much. Councillor Lubberts, any other questions?
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Redekop. And just when your clients purchased the property, did they purchase a duplex or a double unit, or did they purchase, was it just one single-family dwelling when they purchased it?
Well, let me have a look, sir. That would be tab 11 on the materials I provided to the council. Well, with all due respect to any realtors that are present, it says fully licensable. It doesn't say 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah, that was from real estate. What was the town's, how was it zoned? single-family dwelling or duplex or?
There was a pre-consultation hearing on these matters. And let me just,
Before she purchased?
contemporaneous with. Tab 8. There was talk of an auxiliary apartment, and there was talk of a bunkie unit, and there was suggestion from the town or from the city that a bylaw amendment would be necessary. I'm reading, just paraphrasing what it says, sir.
Councillor Lubberts?
Yeah, this still doesn't answer the question, how was it zoned when they purchased it?
There was probably an
There
inquiry
was a
made
lot
by
of
your
talk
client.
about a lot of things, but
There was probably an inquiry made by your clients for a property information statement, and it would have likely indicated what the zoning was. It's currently, we're advised that it's zoned one of the residential categories, which permits one single-family
I think-
dwelling.
I think on a fair read, sir, that you're correct in the fact that when they applied for a 2-unit license, they were told it was only available for 1.
That's right.
I think that, maybe that answers it by backtracking.
Yeah, hence the advice that they need to get a zoning amendment.
Thank you. Thank you for the help.
Did you have any further questions?
no, that's fine.
Anyone else? Thank you very much, sir.
We're hopeful, sir, that through you to the rest of the council, we're hopeful this is an opening that we can further discuss our interpretation of these things. Thank you very much for giving me a moment to speak, and thank you very much for the courtesy.
You're welcome. Okay, so that concludes our delegations this evening, and that takes us to the consent agenda. Councillor Lubberts, you have the resolution for the consent agenda, resolution number 1, and there is one item that has to be removed. That's item 9.2.2B. Yes, that'll be dealt with separately.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Redekop. Do you want to deal with the consent agenda minus
We'll deal with everything except.
everything except?
Yep.
Are they, okay, moved by myself and seconded by Councilor McDermott, that council approves the consent agendas items as recommended, save and except for items 9.2.2B.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. My question is in regards to the Community Health Care Committee minutes, March 22nd, 2022. That's 3I, I guess. I just wanted to comment that it's wonderful news that the hospice is coming to town, and it's a much-needed service to help families and clients during extremely difficult times. And I picked that up in the minutes, and I just wanted to congratulate all those who are behind this, because it's a much-needed service, unfortunately. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we appreciate those comments. Carol Nagy, who is the Executive Director of Hospice Niagara, is a member of the committee, and she's been very helpful, very insightful, and has a lot of connections with other individuals in the healthcare sector. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question with respect to 9.3.g in the minutes of the meeting for the Ridgeway Business Improvement Area. There were a couple of motions that were passed, but one in particular was to get permission to use the West End Arena storage for the Ridgeway BIA equipment. And I'm just wondering, how do we go about getting permission to do that?
Well, you'd have to go through the Ridgeway Lions Club or Crystal Ridge Community Center, which leases the building. There have been some discussions with respect to the possibility of putting in some type of storage annex to the building because the lions require storage. So I would suggest that the BIA contact, I think it's the Crystal Ridge Community Center that has the lease with the municipality, and if you ask me later, I can tell you who it is that's on the executive that I could refer you to. It's recently changed, I'm just not sure.
Thank you. And then one other thing that was mentioned in the report was that the festival is going to be held on July 9th. And one of the asks is to have 10 picnic tables donated by the town of Fort Erie so that the children and the Fort Erie Arts Council can have the children paint the picnic tables and then have them dispersed throughout the community, which was an idea that we had heard about in Seoul. So just wondering how we can go about doing that as well.
Mr. Jansen, I'll pass on the tough ones to you.
I will have to, through the mayor to yourself, I'll have to look into that with our infrastructure group, see if there's any type of plan or option with that and get back to you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? So I had a few questions, particularly with respect to Report IS 11-2022, and I see Mr. Murata, you're here. My concern would be the length of closure of Black Creek Road while they're reconstructing the culvert there. I know that it says no more than a month. The difficulty, as you know, is that there's one point of entry into Douglastown other than Black Creek Road. So what additional measures is the town contemplating in order to ensure that the one that will be remaining open is going to remain available for access and egress? You have to come up to the microphone.
I think just thinking about the area that it's in, it would require coordination, I think, to make sure that when the town's work is happening, if there's any other work within that right of way or that road allowance, doesn't conflict with what we are doing. We can look at options within the design as well in order to try to shrink that period of closure as much as we can at this point without a design in place. It is a guess or an estimate at this time, so we can certainly try to minimize that as much as we can.
I think we need to keep our eye on that, and Councillor Noyes would be very familiar with the challenges at Baker Road. There's a lot of construction going on. We don't want to have a truck get stuck and then there's nobody can get in, nobody can get out, an emergency arises. So, yeah, I don't know if you had any questions or comments on that, Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. Yes, my understanding, like, knowing where it's going, is that it has to be done. There is no avenue to get around it. And it will basically restrict that access completely, 100%. There will be nothing. I think the people who live on the, I guess would be the north side, I think there's 4 or 5 houses, would then have to go to the parkway, obviously, to get in and out, and no one else could go through. How about the construction vehicles in regards to letting them know that they can't be using Black Creek Road? They shouldn't be using it anyway.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's something that we can consider and look at as we go through when we're done the design and then putting together a construction tender. We do have the ability to put in our documents where we would prefer construction traffic to go.
One further question.
Yes.
Is that we don't have a start date yet, right? We're just going to the design and the construction. We don't have that.
It's anticipated in September, isn't it?
September?
Correct, yeah. We're looking at September.
Thank you.
Any other questions in the consent agenda as amended? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the recommendations? That is carried. Councillor Lubberts, could you do item 9.2.2B, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Redekop. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that council approves consent agenda item 9.2.2B.
Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried. We're going to take a brief recess right now because I need to plug in my computer, or it'll be real chaos. So we'll come back at 7:15. back in session. And Councillor Zanko, you have the next resolution where we've moved on to reports, and you have the next resolution.
Yes, I do, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDermott. PDS 26-2022 Animal Care and Control Services Award of Contract. That Council accepts and approves the proposal by the Lincoln County Humane Society for animal care and control services for the town of Fort Erie for a period of 5 years with an increase of 2% per year for the duration of the contract, with an option to extend for an additional 2-year period.
Okay, the report's on the floor for questions or comments. Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. It's a good report, and it looks like, and I've then gone to the Lincoln Humane Society page, and they do wonderful work. But some of the questions I do have is response time. If they're not locally located, I guess that's an oxymoron. What is the response time if there should be a call?
Who's, Mr. Hurlovich, are you going to answer these questions? Mr. McCaffrey, one of you? Both of you?
McCaffrey here and someone from the Lincoln County Humane Society who probably could better answer that question.
So at this stage of the game, you folks would have done the, I don't know if you, Mr. Hurlovich, but Mr. McCaffrey was definitely on the evaluating committee. Were you?
No, I was not.
So Mr. McCaffrey, I think we'll start with him because this is the type of question that I think should have been asked and should have been ascertained and presumably was part of the scoring that went into the recommendation. So we'll start with Mr. McCaffrey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I was part of the evaluation committee. The Lincoln County Humane Society did not give a specific time for response, but they did indicate to me that there would be 2 officers who were specifically assigned to patrol Fort Erie on a consistent daily basis. That would be part of their regular patrols.
Councillor Noyes.
Thank you for that. In regards to the fees that they collect for dog licenses and other licenses, I guess, and the fines, who gets to keep that money, that revenue?
Through Mr. Mayor, the licensing fees goes back to the Lincoln County Humane Society should they get this contract. The fines for AMPS tickets would go to the town. Pound services would go back to the Lincoln County Humane Society. We would retain, the only fines we would retain would be for the AMPS tickets.
Thank you. One further question. In regards to our current SPCA, has there been any thought that if the Lincoln County Humane Society gets awarded the contract as recommended, have there been any tentative discussions about partnering with the Fort Erie SPCA in regards to sharing of some of the services?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there has not been discussions along that lines.
One last question. Is the Lincoln County Humane Society, is that an SPCA?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do not believe that they are.
Okay, thank you.
Any other members of council? Councillor Lubberts.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Redekop. I guess Mr. McCaffrey could answer this as well. On page 5, I guess the second paragraph, it says Mr. Struband detailed how the animal control officers would be assigned to conduct the patrols specific to Fort Erie. And can you elaborate on what those details are? How is this going to happen?
Through Mr. Mayor, I would assume that they would be assigned regular area to patrol. They would patrol different areas looking for offenses. Should they get offenses, they would respond accordingly. Regular patrols would be just responding to calls as they come in or proactively looking to address issues that may come in.
So they will be patrolling daily?
That's my understanding, Councilor.
And did they tell you how many hours a day they would be in Fort Erie?
They did not tell me specific hours, no.
And on page 6, it goes on to talk about the full-time vet tech, if it's required in the Thorold facility. And so my question is, when we went through the evaluation process, what facility were we evaluating? The St. Catharines facility or the Thorold facility?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, both facilities were considered.
So they would have to have a vet tech in St. Catharines.
They currently do have one in St. Catharines already, which would be made available to us.
So if they would be required to have a vet tech in Thorold, then it indicates here that it's an extra $47,000 a year, so.
That's
we could
correct,
be looking at an extra, that would be extra over and above what we're awarding.
That's correct, sir. There is not currently a vet tech stationed at the Thorold facility. That would be an extra requirement. That would be a provisional item, which is not included.
Did they explain it all? If they got two facilities, is this Thorold facility going to be the facility that's going to service Fort Erie? What I'm getting at is I don't want the residents of Fort Erie to be having less service when it comes to patrols and so forth. And I don't want them to be serviced with a facility that doesn't have the same complement as far as staffing as their St. Catharines facility.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's my understanding both facilities would be providing different services for the town of Fort Erie, similar to what they do in other communities.
Can we get that information on how they're going to separate?
I believe Mr. Struban could probably answer that question.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, so at this point, we've had two councillors ask questions that I think need clarification. You've asked a couple, Councillor Lubberts. Councillor Noyes, you asked one. I think since Mr. Struban is here, perhaps we should give him an opportunity to respond. So if you'd come forward, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So Councillor Lubberts, your questions were most recently requested. Did you have some questions of Mr. Struban that you wanted to get answers for in terms of patrol and that type of thing, hours of operation?
Yes, I think you heard the questions. How many hours are they going to be in Fort Erie patrolling?
So to clarify Mr. McCaffrey's point, it would be one officer per day, but patrolling the entire day in the city of Fort Erie, in the town of Fort Erie. So they would have 8 hours, but that depends on if there's an emergency or an injury where they would have to take it to Thorold. However, that being said, if there's an opportunity where there's an injured domestic animal, for example, we would utilize a clinic that's in Fort Erie. Because even the St. Catharines Clinic, when it's operating, fully operational, there isn't always a vet available, so we'll use a local clinic to expedite the care for that animal.
Councillor Lubberts?
Okay. And in the report, it talks about your staff, your complement in St. Catharines. You got 3 veterinarians. I think it says access to 3 veterinarians.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
From my knowledge, with the current contract that we have with our local SPCA, they use the money that they generate through licensing and the money that they generate through the contract to pay for the veterinarian fees. So your contract for $142,000 and change would only for animal control. If there's veterinarian care, that would be over and above?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, that would be included. So if there are animals that need additional care, that's incorporated into those costs.
Okay.
And at times, we may have situations where an animal needs more care that we can't afford, and we've appealed to the public, and we've been met with a lot of success for the benefit of those animals.
Okay, so there won't be no extra charge to the taxpayer?
That's correct.
That's all, yeah, okay, thanks.
Councillor Noyes, yeah, we'll just go back to you, and then if there's other councillors, we'll go to them.
So, I think you said I could ask a question. Thank you. In regards to response time, do you have like a target that you hope that when a call comes in, that you can meet? Like do you keep records? Like, I know if the fire department likes to get there within 8 minutes or less, if I'm not, I think that's the right number. Do you have a target from when you respond to calls?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we don't have a specific target, but my intention is to have an officer in Fort Erie, so it just depends on how long it may take to get across just the town. At times, the officer may be at the Thorold location delivering an animal. Perhaps we pick up a stray cat or a stray dog and they're taking it in. That could increase the time, but my goal is to always have an officer during the times of the day that we've agreed to have an officer available in the community.
If I can continue, and that's great, and I understand you can't be everywhere all the time. But an after-hour call, that would still be addressed and things like that, right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that would be, because we will have an officer on call. The plan also is to have an officer that is in South Niagara, hopefully in Fort Erie, although I will hire the best person for the job, but that's my intent, to have a second person on call. So right now we have one person on call for the 4 municipalities that we serve. But because of the distance, and in my proposal, I accounted for having an additional person on call so that we can service Fort Erie quicker.
And thank you. I have another question. In regards to, like, if you catch a loose dog and you bring him to the pound in Thorold, I'm making an assumption there. Do you have any mechanism to facilitate the return of the dog to its owner if the person doesn't have the means of picking the dog up? Like, not everybody has the means of driving to Thorold.
Correct, and through you, Mr. Mayor, we do, in St. Catharines, we have a similar program. It's called a free ride home. And if people have taken the time and complied with the bylaw and licensed their dog, then we will do what we can to get the dog back to them. And in St. Catharines, it's 1 day. So if you call that day and say, my dog got away, it bears a current license, and it doesn't habitually run at large, then yes, we can do that. It doesn't happen very often that occurs, but we also know and recognize that there's going to be a difficult transition period. There are going to be some bumps along the way. So I want to make sure that my staff are going above and beyond to make the residents of Fort Erie feel comfortable by having a new service provider.
One further question. In regards to the vet tech being on site, which is one of the provisional items that council was hoping for, I think that the amount was about $48,000. Does the town of Fort Erie, I'm assuming that the vet tech, if she's there or he's there during the day, that they would not just be servicing Fort Erie animals, they'd be servicing any animal that needed to be serviced, right, or given care. Would the town of Fort Erie then be basically picking up the $48,000?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it would, because that was one of the requests that we had. So that person will be available. However, I think with the current complement we have and the way that it works right now, I don't know that that is a good use of the funds, because I'm not sure that it's needed. I think that that can be looked at in the future, but right now I don't think that that's needed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Before I go to Councillor Lubberts, anyone else have any questions? Back to you, Councillor Lubberts.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, Mr. Truban, on page 6 of our report, it says that if we require a staff 24/7, right, it's an additional $154,000. But it talks about the Thorold site again. So, but I see that the Thorold site is under renovations. You just purchased it in March. So I'm assuming you're still working on it. When will that be done?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we anticipate, of course, we have to go through an entire process with an architect and the planning department and permits. So I think to get it right where we want it, which looking like a beautiful shelter, I would anticipate the end of the year. But we are currently working on providing pens for dogs inside the building now. I've personally been bringing cat cages to the building so that we can start, hopefully, right on the 1st of June if we're awarded this contract, so that we have a presence there immediately.
Okay, now, another question is volunteers and co-ops and volunteer time for students. Are you going to still provide any kind of opportunity for volunteers to work with animals in Fort Erie? And are you going to allow any opportunities for students to do any co-op work with your company?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely we will. Because we are going to be part of this community, that is being part of the community. We're going to invite the students in. We get a lot of students in St. Catharines and from other areas that we serve, but I think it's important because so many people want to work with animals and they want to enter into that field. What better way to do it than to be at our facility? So that option and that opportunity will definitely be available.
Now, if it's going to be available, how will they get to your facility? Because you're going to have this facility in Thorold and St. Catharines. How will they get there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, they'll have to find their own transportation. Unfortunately, we won't be able to help them get there, but we will encourage that they do come, and it's quite a learning opportunity, so I think people will make the trip.
So it'll be difficult for them to participate in any program?
In some cases, it may be.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Mr. Strugan, I had a few questions, and I want to start where Councillor Lubberts ended off. So the volunteers, the student participation opportunities, that would be at facilities that you own in St. Catharines and Thorold?
That's correct, yes.
So would there be any types of opportunities in Fort Erie?
There are a few, but that's with co-op students or other students who want to ride with our officers. So that does happen on occasion, where they may go along on a patrol for a number of weeks with officers to learn what they actually do on the road.
The report indicates that your agency is governed and licensed by the Ontario SPCA and in good standing. What is the nature of your link to the SPCA, Ontario SPCA?
Jim and I were talking about that earlier. That's not correct. We used to be an affiliate of the Ontario SPCA, but since PAWS has come in and that whole framework has changed, there are no longer affiliates, and we're not an affiliate. So we're not licensed or governed by the Ontario SPCA. We're governed by a board of directors.
And in terms of the response to the RFP, I presume that you were required to submit documents relative to governance, your policies, whether they're health and safety, harassment, et cetera?
So we aren't required to submit them, but we do have quite an extensive array of policies protecting staff, stopping them from doing certain things, relating to conduct on the job, health and safety, of course, personal protective equipment. So those are all available. If the staff at Fort Erie wanted to see them, we'll certainly share them.
So the staff that has made the recommendation hasn't actually seen your policies?
We have not shared the policies to this point.
Right. You haven't been asked?
No.
In terms of the one officer per day, you mentioned 8 hours, depending on whether there's an emergency or whatever. Is that a total of 8 hours during the course of the day, or is there going to be an officer coming in, an officer going out? Is there going to be coverage? I guess my question is it 8 hours coverage per day?
That's what the contract is asking for, so that's what we will provide. However, that also means if something happens where we need 3 officers, then 3 officers will be here. As long as we have the staff available, people are also cross-trained. I am technically an animal control officer. I carry an animal control officer badge. I'm always that resource for my officers if they need someone, and I'm used quite frequently for normally just asking questions, but we have several other people who are cross-trained to make sure that we can provide additional service if it's required.
So calls that come in from people about a stray dog, stray animal, wildlife in crisis or whatever, those happen at all times of the day. So if there's a call that comes in and there isn't somebody in Fort Erie, someone would be coming to Fort Erie?
Absolutely. And we have officers on call 24 hours a day and a full dispatch system so that people can call Dumont. We use that company in St. Catharines, and they will dispatch our officers to attend the scene at any time of the day or night.
How many officers do you employ?
Right now, we have 5 animal control officers.
5?
5, yes.
And if Fort Erie enters into a contract with you, you would have 5 municipalities that you would be servicing?
That's correct.
So essentially 1 per municipality?
Yes, and we intend to hire 2 more for Fort Erie.
Just for Fort Erie?
Correct.
They would be utilized wherever you need them as well?
But my intent is to keep them mainly in Fort Erie because they would be over and above the complement that we have now.
So would they likely be, I know you can't speculate on this, but certainly there could be people from Fort Erie?
Absolutely.
In a situation where you've got an officer, the officer who's assigned to the town, who responds to a call, has to pick up a dog that's running at large, that dog is then taken to Thorold? Or will the dog be in the vehicle for a period of time to permit continued coverage? Or would somebody shuffle in to take the place of the officer who's left with the dog at large?
So it all depends on the circumstances of the call. You know, if the weather's good and the dog can be in the truck for a while because maybe an owner will call us, we can do that. Our officers also all carry microchip scanners on their person, so they can scan the dog, see if there's a microchip, call the 1-800 number, trace the microchip and get it back to the owner. And of course, if there's a tag, we can do that quickly as well. So there are a number of options, and as we learn the community, typically what we would do, you know, I was an animal control officer for 10 years, I would knock on area doors and say, do you know where this dog lives? And quite often that's quite successful. You know, unless it's been hanging around for a while, we're met with a lot of success with that. If the dog has to be taken to our Thorold facility, the officer would typically just drive to Thorold, deliver the dog, impound it, and then come back.
Right. And in that type of situation, the owner then is ascertained, or the owner calls and, I'm looking for my dog, I don't have a license, whatever. Okay, well, if you're the owner, you have to provide verification of ownership. That person would have to go to pick up the dog. Is there not a mechanism where, since you've got an officer coming to Fort Erie every day, I guess it depends on where they come from, but could there not be some type of a shuttle where the animal is returned to the owner?
So I'd spoken to Councillor Noyes about that, that maybe there's an opportunity for a free ride home if the dog is licensed, if it's not habitually running at large. But I want to be careful saying, yes, we can always do that, because then there's an expectation, and if we can't, then we're going to disappoint the residents. So if you look across Niagara, there are 4 Humane Society locations that service 12 municipalities. So that means 75% of them don't have any physical building in their municipality. So Grimsby and Niagara-on-the-Lake, for example, we do both of those, and they all have to drive to St. Catharines. Some of those growing pains where people will have to drive, and it'll be disappointing at times, I'm sure, but we're going to work with what I'd said earlier to try and make that as easy as possible for the residents.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And animal control isn't health services, but we also used to have a hospital in Fort Erie. So it's not much comfort to know that we're in company with 8 other municipalities that don't have a shelter. However, I appreciate your responses so far. I had a couple of other questions, one of which had to do with the licensing. I know that some individuals in town were asking about the opportunity to be able to buy a dog license online. And I believe from the report, that's a service that you provide.
Yes, so that would be provided through a third party that we would contract with called DocuPet. There's one company in Ontario that provides this type of licensing, and it's actually an amazing product that they do because of the reporting your animal lost. And I could go into detail about it. They're the best ones to do that. But it's really a really good licensing system where people get bonuses for purchasing their license. You might get percentages off at a certain store, which almost makes your license free. And they do commit to each municipality to do something for that municipality to find those bonuses for people so that they're encouraged to buy their license. Because of course, when they're encouraged to buy, the amount of licenses sold goes up as well. So that would be online, and we've also committed to purchasing, well, it would probably be 2 laptops, one that would be here and one that would be at another location, presumably a pet store, we're not sure yet, to have a remote location where people could go if they don't have a computer at home. And then, let's say it was the local pet store, we would pay them a commission to sell a license to that particular person.
So they would, in essence, be assisting someone who maybe isn't computer literate?
Correct.
Because this is all going to be done online?
That's correct.
Okay. And so I think you've just answered the question. The report makes reference to kiosks. You're talking about something maybe located here at Town Hall, something located maybe in one of the pet stores, something located maybe someplace else.
Yeah, we're looking at 2 locations. One would be here and one out in the community.
Okay. And you would be retaining the license fees. That would be part of the
That's my
agreement.
understanding, yes.
So, you may not know this, or you may know this. This may be a question I should be asking staff. Has there been a draft agreement prepared yet?
There is a basic draft agreement as part of the RFP, but not really in its entirety, to my knowledge.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Are there any questions, any further questions that members of council have? Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Struban.
Thank you.
So, Mr. McCaffrey, if you could come back up. Councillor Lubberts has a question, and then I have a question, and maybe others.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Redekop. When I was going through the report, it says that the evaluation committee met with Mr. Struban to get some clarification on some of the issues that arose in the evaluation. And I know that there was an appointment scheduled with our local SPCA to meet with yourself, but that meeting was canceled, and the manager was under the indication that that was to discuss something about the RFP. Is there any reason why that meeting was canceled?
Mr. McCaffrey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was advised from a procedural to cancel that meeting.
Advised by the procurement officer?
By the CAO.
But you had a meeting with Mr. Struban?
We did.
Yeah, okay.
Anything further? Any other councillors? Councillor Noyes?
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. I don't have a particular question for an individual. I don't have a comment on the report itself. That's okay?
Yeah.
My one concern is that I think based on one of the questions you asked about policies, is that the town has not seen the policies yet. And I know that when we were reviewing our animal control and things, that one of the concerns that were raised a number of times was the policies of our current provider were not up to date, were not, there was room for improvement. So, and I'm not trying to diss the Lincoln County Humane Society at all. I'm not sure what their policies are, and I would have thought that they should have been part of the evaluation of the point system. And so I'm just wondering whether, and in regards to, I would like to know what those policies are to make sure that they are. I've heard great things, so don't get me wrong. I've heard great things, but the fact that we haven't looked at the policy, or the staff haven't looked at the policies to evaluate in comparison to our concerns from before, I think basically perhaps we should defer this until we have a chance to look at that.
So before you go there, let me ask Mr. McCaffrey, knowing that that was a big point of concern to a number of councillors in terms of the current service provider, why wouldn't we have looked at what the recommended proponents' governance documents, policies look like?
Mr. Mayor, I can only say from my perspective as the RFP, we asked if there were policies and procedures for different issues. I can't comment as to why they were not provided.
Well, if you didn't ask for them, they wouldn't be provided. If you asked if they had them, that's one thing. If you asked
Right.
if they can provide them, that's another. But maybe there was some misunderstanding. So does anybody want to speak before I let Councillor Noyes put her motion on the floor? Okay, so you're talking about a deferral to May the 9th in order to allow staff to obtain from the Lincoln County Humane Society the governance documents and policies that they have?
Yes.
Anything else?
At this point, no. I think they answered the question about response time. They won't know until they're actually providing. They're going to do their best, so.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councillor McDermott? So only question is to the timing. And I know, you may sit down, Mr. McCaffrey. Mr. Jansen, the current contract expires at the end of May, so there is some timeliness in this. So May the 9th, that's our next regular council meeting, which is going to be a heavy agenda already, but it's May the 9th. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, so Mr. McCaffrey, you know the information, and Mr. Struband, it'd be easy, you probably got a policy book and your governance documents. I'd be interested as well in knowing, you have a board of directors. That may even be online, is it? Yeah. It is. Yeah, that's fine. Councillor Noyes did due diligence for me.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. It's been deferred. The report's been deferred to May the 9th. That takes us then to the nomination for the Niagara Region Transit Commission Board. Any nominations? Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, Your Worship, I'd actually like to nominate you as both our regional and our municipal representative to the Niagara Region Transit, I think it's the interim commission, I think they're calling it.
Yeah. Niagara Transit Commission Board. I'd love to do that. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Lubberts? Are there any other nominations? This is one of those deals where everybody step forward if you want to do the job and everyone takes a step back. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, Councillor McDermott, I think you put my name in the, you've got the motion, so you would put my name in. This is resolution number 3. Yeah. Well, we just wanted to see who is interested. That's your motion, and now you have a name to put in the box.
I'm just going to change my motion to next motion?
No, it's your motion. It's your motion. But now you have a name to fill in. You didn't have a
Whose
name.
name is that?
It was blank.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lubberts, that council nominates Mayor Redekop as the council representative on the Niagara Region Transit Commission Board.
Any questions or comments? Councillor Lubberts?
Yes, thank you very much. Mayor Redekop, your first order of business hopefully will be to have a bus transport some of the students to Thorold so they can do their co-op.
It's, yeah.
Yeah?
Well,
Okay, thanks.
I was rather thinking we could develop some type of unique program where we could actually draw Lincoln County Humane Society into providing some type of things here for students. So that might save the cost of a bus and keep the kids local. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Butler, you have the next resolution with respect to Communities in Bloom.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Zanko, that council appoints Shirley Opie to the Communities in Bloom Committee for the period ending November 14th, 2022.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. And Ms. Opie has been on that committee, I think, in the past. So she'll be a welcome addition. Councillor Butler, you have the next resolution as well.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Zanko, that council accepts the resignations of Tyler Chevalier and Don Irvine from the Ridgeway Business Improvement Area Board of Management, and further that council directs staff to proceed with filling the vacancy in accordance with the procedural bylaw.
Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Councillor Noyes, it's your turn. You have a resolution with respect to the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, of which you are a member.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Redekop. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dubanow. The council accepts the resignation of John Volowich and Mary Franks from the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, and further council directs staff to proceed with filling the vacancy in accordance with the procedural bylaw.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. And Councillor Noyes, you have the next resolution.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dubanow. The council appoints Jane Cruikshank as a Beachcombers representative to the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee for the period ending November 14th, 2022.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Councillor McDermott, you have the next resolution.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dubanow. Whereas the National Volunteer Week theme for 2022, volunteering is empathy in action, affirms a strong connection between volunteerism and empathy. And whereas during National Volunteer Week 2022, we celebrate the contributions of Canada's millions of volunteers, their actions, their understanding, and their genuine concern for the world around them. And whereas volunteering, putting empathy into action, can build communities where people feel happier, healthier, and more welcome, create a stronger, more connected Canada. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Council proclaims April 24th to 30th, 2022 as National Volunteer Week, and further that Council expresses their appreciation and gratitude to all volunteers in the town of Fort Erie for their empathy, dedication, and commitment to our community.
Any questions or comments? I know the province had a volunteer year, and I think it was 2003, and we recognized over 3,000 volunteers in Fort Erie at the racetrack, which I thought was a remarkable number because it constituted more than 10% of the population at the time. So Fort Erie has many volunteers. All those in favor of the resolution? None opposed, that is carried. Councillor Noyes, you have the next resolution.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dubanow that the council proclaims May 29th, June 4th, 2022 as National Accessibility Week.
Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried. Are there any other inquiries or items of new business? Councillor Butler.
I have a couple, actually. The first one starting with, in the history that I've been working here as a councillor, I don't know that I've ever seen a contract that was to be awarded be deferred. I was wondering if perhaps the CAO could comment if that was his recollection as well.
Mr. Jansen. The question was about the deferral of a proposed contract.
Certainly, I mean, specifically to your question, to my recollection, I don't recall us having deferred a decision on that, but it's council's prerogative to require or ask for more information, so that's something we can accommodate.
Councillor Butler?
Yes, thank you. So 2 more questions. The second inquiry is that is there data that the town maintains on the number of contracts that are issued outside of the Fort Erie businesses. So how many actually reside in Fort Erie that are awarded contracts, and how many are awarded to proponents that are outside of Fort Erie? Do we have that data?
Mr. Jansen, do we maintain that type of data, department by department?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Butler, no, we do not. We could, on some levels, try and put some of that together. And our purchasing policy doesn't have any local preference in it, but in short, no, we don't have that information.
If you could provide that information when your team has the opportunity to find some time to do that, that would be great.
Well, I think Councillor Butler, what we'll do is we'll defer that request to the new CAO. I mean, you know that our staff is understaffed. You know that they've got a lot of work, and I understand where you're going with this. As Mr. Jansen has indicated, we have a policy that says preference isn't necessarily shown to local contractors.
That's right.
This issue hasn't been finalized.
I get it.
You're heading. Why don't we hold that request to May the 9th, and it might become more helpful.
Well, it's a request that can be in the records right at this point, whether or not Mr. Jansen handles it or whether or not the new CAO handles it. It can be handed off.
It's in the record now.
Yeah, that's right. I'm just curious with respect to the stats. And then the third inquiry that I have is that spring is here, summer is coming. The ponds that are maintained always seems to be problematic. Are we able to find some information with respect to how those ponds are going to be maintained at an early stage so that residents aren't suffering the way that they have in the past?
So we have we have staff supposed to be working on a new policy with respect to the maintenance of these ponds. Mr. Murata, do you have any status information with respect to where that might be? If that's in your department, I think part of it is, maybe part of it's also in planning.
We do look after maintenance of the ponds as part of the work we do. I do not have information on that right now, where we stand in terms of looking at that maintenance.
My understanding is that Mr. Walsh is away for a couple of weeks.
Correct.
So maybe during the next week or so, you could maybe track down what the status of the resolution of this council was seeking a new policy with respect to stormwater management ponds and also the maintenance of those ponds. It deals directly with Councillor Butler's inquiry. And that motion was probably passed some time ago. Again, it's something that's of great significance, and I understand that everybody has a lot of work on their plate, but this really addresses the attractiveness and functionality of the community. So as an example, we've got what could be a beautiful pond on Albany Road, and we haven't taken it over yet. It's still owned by the developer. But we need to have some policies that would require that to be managed. There's, we also have a pond in the Sugar Bowl. The town maintains that. We're responsible for that. So if you could get back to us, maybe by memo, and give us an indication of what the status is, I'd appreciate it.
I will do that.
Does that help, Councillor Butler? Did you have anything further, Councillor Butler? Anyone else? Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, Your Worship, thank you. This is not so much a town-related issue, but as a councillor here, a lot of these meetings and events take you away from family, and it's a sacrifice that they bear as well as we do as representatives of this community. And tonight's my daughter's birthday. She's 8 years old, and I told her tonight that I would wish her a happy birthday on TV and YouTube. So Penelope, happy birthday. Daddy's very proud of you. So I promised her I would say that tonight because I couldn't be home this evening. So I just wanted to mention that.
So Councillor Dubanow, you should move, and Councillor Noyes will second that we wish your daughter, Penelope, happy, which birthday? Eighth birthday.
I'll move that.
Not,
Oh, believe me, I got a pecuniary.
yeah. All those in favor?
There we go.
That is unanimous. That'd have to be another motion. Yeah, we'll get the clerk to send an email. Any other councillors? I did have a question. I think Councillor Butler, you may have raised it during the week. It had to do with street lights. Number of lights were out. Mr. Waltz did provide us with a response indicating, Mr. Murata, that this is an issue that's with the manufacturer, that there's a problem with some aspect. There's about 150 lights in the town that are out. We've been struggling with this for a couple of years now, and many of these are brand new lights that I think were installed in 2015 as part of our move to the energy efficient LEDs. Do you have any additional information or some indication as to if there are other solutions that we can perhaps contemplate or pursue to make sure we deal with this more efficiently?
Yeah, you are correct. It is related to the LED replacement program that we had. So many of the fixtures we are trying to repair under warranty. So we are getting the replacement parts through our warranty, which does limit the way we can get them. What they have done is, instead of replacing the incomplete unit, they're just sending the part of the unit. So what we are trying to do is work with them to recognize, we have this much demand right now, but try to get our hands on stock so that we are ahead of the game going forward. So that's our strategy at this point.
So would part of the problem be the supply chain?
Correct.
Okay. Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And just touching on that, I know this has been a difficult challenge, and certainly, we have a lot of communication with residents, explaining to them, the realities. I know I think it's a driver unit that we're finding are failing, and I mean heat, other things. I understand that happens, but I'm just wondering if we have a warranty program in place, and if the manufacturer isn't able to supply parts due to supply chain issues, has there been any consideration of, I know this doesn't help us financially, but for the sake of the residents and safety at night, has there been any consideration of possibly, I don't know, speccing out a different luminaire or something along those lines? If we ever find ourselves in a situation like this again, just if we have a light that's sitting there for 8 months and we can't get replacement parts, if there's an alternate supplier and we can replace the Cobra head or something along those lines, I'm just throwing this out there because I know this has been an issue that a lot of residents have raised with me. I understand it's certainly not the fault of the municipality. We're all doing our best. I'm just trying to brainstorm here and see if there's a solution or something we can do just to kind of improve service. I don't even know if it's feasible, Your Worship, if we can do something like that. I'm throwing it out there, and if you had any thoughts.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know that we've looked into that. I think we've just gone with the warranty. The values in the warranty and replace the parts. Understand what you're saying, and it is an interesting train of thought. We can look into it and just see what alternatives are available. Technically, I'm not a great guy electrical. I'm a civil guy, but if we can find comparable parts that do work, and if they are at a cost, we can explore that and look into it and see if it is available, as long as we get something that can work, that's going to fit and go forward. I know sometimes it's tricky depending on what we've spec'd out. So one of the issues we've had in the past is with the decorative lights, which is this is what you've got, this is what you're going to get, and we've struggled with that. This is different, though. This is the more commonplace light. So perhaps there is an opportunity. We can look into that and see what's available.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Mr. Murata. Councillor Lubberts?
Thank you very much, Mayor Redekop. Just to follow up on that, I'm an electrician, so I know a little bit about this driver you guys are trying to purchase. We put the lights in Fort Erie, and there's a warranty. How long was that warranty for?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe it is a 10-year warranty. I didn't work on that contract. I'd have to check and see, but I think it's a 10-year warranty.
Now, is the problem that in the warranty, they have to supply the parts that came with the original unit, and they can't use an alternate part? Because I know there's alternates out there everywhere.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe that's how the warranty would work, that, yeah, we are to use the particular branded part that goes with that unit.
And is the town and the provider that installed the lights, are we willing to work on that and forego the manufacturer's driver and go to an alternate? Can we do that without voiding our warranty if they agree?
Yeah, no, I think if we do that, we jeopardize the warranty. So that's something maybe that our lawyers could take a look at. Mr. Jansen, maybe you could have Mr.
Yeah, what I'm trying to get at, Mayor Redekop, is if we're stuck on the warranty, that's the problem.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. And
if
that's
the
something-
alternate's available, but under contract, you can't do it, maybe we need to compromise a little bit
I think we
and
may have,
still maintain the warranty.
yeah, I think we may have looked at that before, but I think we should take a look at it again, because this is I mean, we're now, if we're at 150, who knows what number we'll be at as this goes along. It's not really acceptable, but if it's a supply chain issue, I don't know whether the alternatives might be available.
Well, I can maybe look into it myself too. I'll get some numbers off you and I'll see if I can track some drivers down.
Okay, thanks very much,
Appreciate
Mr.
it. Thank you.
Murata. Anyone else? Then that takes us to motions, and since I have a motion, Councillor, who is the acting mayor, Councillor McDermott? Councillor McDermott, could I ask you to take the chair for my motion?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is the motion with respect to diversity and inclusion. Whereas the Fort Erie Diversity and Inclusion Coalition, the coalition, made a presentation to the Town Council on February the 28th, 2022, outlining the results of a survey that it had conducted and requesting certain actions by Council to address issues relating to racism, prejudice, and discrimination. And whereas the Town of Fort Erie holds equity, diversity, and inclusion as important community values, and whereas Council has satisfied one of the coalition's requests by hiring a new Chief Administrative Officer who has skills and experience in equity, diversity, and inclusion matters. And whereas the current Town Council cannot bind a future council in certain respects, but can express its desire that the next Town Council adopts equity, diversity, and inclusion as key strategic objectives, now therefore be it resolved that this council strongly recommends to the next Town Council that it includes equity, diversity, and inclusion as pillars in the next Town of Fort Erie strategic plan for the term 2022 to 2026, and that Council directs the Chief Administrative Officer, when he assumes office on May 2nd, 2022, to develop and implement an equity, diversity, and inclusion work plan for the Town of Fort Erie by the end of 2023, or within a time frame otherwise acceptable to Council, and that the Town of Fort Erie arrange to provide professional development training for members of Town Council and employees, along with members of the Fort Erie Diversity and Inclusion Coalition, to further their understanding and knowledge of equity, diversity, and inclusion issues by the end of 2023, or within a time frame otherwise acceptable to Council, and in so doing, Town staff seek partners with whom to collaborate to sponsor such training and equity, diversity, and inclusion workshops. And if I might just
Would you like
briefly
to speak back,
comment on
Your
that.
Worship?
Yeah, so 2023 seems to be an adequate time frame. However, we have a new CAO coming on, and he may think that there's something that can be done to either reduce or accelerate that, or the next council may feel that this isn't as much of a priority as I would hope we think it is, or they may think it's a more important priority, so that hence the flexibility and the timelines. The last paragraph in the resolution, which talks about professional development training, I would hope that we would also be able to expand that at some point. I know the coalition would like at some point to be able to expand these types of programs to the general public, so that individuals who want to take part in diversity, equity, inclusion programs can do that. So hopefully that would be the long term. The coalition has been doing, I think, some very good work helping to raise the profile of this issue in our community, and I know that these issues are best driven by community-based, community-supported groups, as opposed to committees that maybe are made up of council representatives or appointees, because these people are living the issue, and I'm hoping that we'll support their efforts. Thank you, Chair.
Would anybody else like to speak to the issue? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any?
Did we
Carried.
have a seconder? We didn't have a seconder. Councillor Dubanow. Okay.
Okay, Your Worship, you have a second one there. Would you also like to second that, Councillor Dubanow?
If you could have the chair and Councillor Dubanow, your support.
Go ahead,
for
Your Worship.
seconding. Thank you. This really emanates from an issue that Councillor Zanko brought forward, and not wanting to steal your thunder, but you weren't available for a meeting, and then I had this thing on my agenda, so I just went ahead and did it. So I move, seconded by Councillor Dubanow, that whereas Council's rules of procedures were amended on September 21st, 2020, following amendments made to the Municipal Act 2001 to provide for members of council to participate electronically in open and closed meetings of council if they are ill, have a disability which makes it difficult to attend in person, need to care for a sick family member, or due to inclement weather, subject to notifying the clerk at least 48 hours in advance of the meeting and the reason for participating electronically. And whereas delegations were permitted to participate electronically in the same instances and under the same rules as members of council, and whereas Ontario moved into step 3 of the roadmap to safely ease public health measures effective February 17th, 2022, and whereas public health and health system indicators continued to improve, on February 25th, 2022, government amended OREG 364/20 relative to the roadmap exit step, Schedule 4, to lift capacity limits in all remaining indoor public settings. And whereas as of March 1st, 2022, Town Hall and the council chambers were fully open to the public, and council resumed in-person meetings only for council, staff, and the public, with the exception of a statutory public meeting for which a notice under the provisions of the Planning Act had already been given, advising that the public can participate virtually at the council and committee meeting to be held on March 21st, 2022, and members of council who qualified under the amendment of council's rules of procedure passed on September 21st, 2020. We all lost yet? Whereas it is, are we lost yet? Whereas it is desirable to provide hybrid options for those wishing to participate in council meetings, whether regular, special, or committee, when they cannot otherwise attend. Now therefore be it resolved that participation at Town of Fort Erie Council meetings electronically be permitted as follows. A, members of council in open meetings if they, and there's 2 days in there, one of which should be stricken. If they, 1, are ill, 2, have a disability which makes it difficult to attend in person, 3, need to care for a sick family member, or 4, due to inclement weather, subject to advance notice being provided to the clerk of the need to attend electronically and the reason. And B, members of the public as a delegation upon providing notice to the clerk by noon on the Friday prior to the meeting. 2, that statutory public meetings under the Planning Act or any other legislative meetings shall be held as hybrid meetings for both in-person and electronic participation. 3, that for greater clarity, meetings that are not open to the public may not be held electronically except where an emergency has been declared by the head of council. And 4, that bylaw number 36-2016, being council's rules of procedure, be amended to accommodate the above changes and any incidental changes recommended by the clerk. If I might, Chair, I had originally included a provision that would have dealt with staff, professionals, or other individuals that would be wanting to address council to participate in a hybrid model. That, if it's a delegation, they can attend in any event. if it's a member of our staff, we can authorize that. But Madam Clerk, I'm just wondering whether there shouldn't be some specific reference to the staff, consultants or professionals.
Your Worship, we did discuss this with the CAO, and being that the staff are mainly administrative, that would go through the CAO as to whether or not they would be attending electronically for a specific meeting or not. Insofar as our consultants that we do pay to attend, such as the Hempson Group for development charges, we could certainly waive the rules that evening in order to allow that electronic participation. It wouldn't happen too often.
Right, and if they're a delegation, they presumably would be notifying you in any event that they're, or staff would be notifying that they're going to be
If they
attending.
have one of the reasons, yes.
Yep, okay. So this expands the opportunities for hybrid meetings, and it permits greater participation by the public, which I think is important. It may make for longer meetings, but I think we need to provide those who can't come to a meeting the opportunity to attend a meeting. This has worked well in other municipalities in Niagara. Some of them have a bit more restrictive provisions. Some may be a bit broader. Some a mix of what we're proposing here, what I'm proposing. And so that's on the floor, Chair.
Councillor Zanko?
Thank you, and through you to Mayor Redekop. I'm so glad that you were able to bring this forward. I thank you for that. I did, however, have the intention of allowing hybrid participation for other reasons, not just necessarily being ill or weather. Sometimes council members travel for work. I'm sure when a new council comes in, that might be the same. The other concern I have, and I understand it's at the CEO's discretion, but I think staff should also be able to participate in hybrid meetings. I can't count the number of times that staff members have been here so late in the evening and we've postponed the agenda and they have to drive out of town for work when really there's no reason for them to be here. So I'm not sure if maybe a friendly amendment needs to be done with your motion, but I would like to expand what qualifies for hybrid participation.
Tell me what you want to do and I'll tell you whether I think it's friendly.
Well, I would like to expand, not necessarily just if you're ill, if you cannot come in person.
Okay, so I'm going to take the position that that's not friendly, so you might want to make an amendment.
Okay, I'd like to make that amendment then.
Okay, so Chair, that's...
Mayor, may I clarify, is that just for any reason?
For any reason, yes. I agree with everything else as far as the 48-hour notice, and I would like it to be put in the motion, and I'm sure this is another amendment, that at the CEO's discretion, that staff can participate in a hybrid fashion.
That's friendly, and in the original draft that I had prepared, there was a third paragraph that dealt specifically with staff, consultants, and professionals.
Okay.
But I do believe that we should spell it out. I know that the clerk takes the view that it's an administrative matter, but I do think we should have it in the. It takes the burden off of the chief administrative officer, number one, and number two does provide for that flexibility. Because it doesn't make much sense to, as you said, have staff here for long meetings when they could zoom in. We had a perfect example the other night when we were here until 11:30 something. I know that there were staff members in their offices here waiting to come to the meeting. It seems to be unnecessary. So I would agree with that's a friendly amendment. And how would you want to word that?
That staff are able to participate in hybrid meetings at the discretion of the CEO.
So I would, Chair, I would think that would be item 1C, members of staff in the discretion of the CAO. That's
Okay.
if Councillor
Any
Dubanow
comments or
considers
questions
it.
about the amendment?
So,
There's two amendments.
no, there's one that I consider friendly, and if Councillor Dubanow is in agreement, then that's a friendly amendment. Okay, so then the only amendment that needs to be voted on would be the one about members of council participating by electronically under any circumstance.
Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm torn on the issue of universal electronic participation, simply because I wouldn't want to see, perhaps the next term, someone run for council and never show up in this chamber, and to participate electronically constantly. I think there's a lot of, I think you get better decision-making and you get a better feeling for what you need to do when you're here in person. And believe me, there are so many times where, it's a long day at work. I just want to, throw on my pajamas with a jacket and go and sit downstairs and just be behind my computer. But when I signed up for this, I knew I had to be here. And I would hate, and I use that word intentionally, I would hate to see all all government meetings turn fully electronic, where we're all in different locations, we're not working together, we're not seeing each other. For the year and a half during the pandemic, when we weren't here together, I personally found it very difficult. I found it a little startling where, at the end of the meeting, the camera just goes off. You don't have an opportunity to see the councillors and discuss things with them, get a feel for what's going on. I think we work better together when we're here. Now, that's not to say that I don't think that we should have options and opportunities to work remotely. I think we just need to be a little more nuanced, and I'm concerned with the term, the phrasing "for any reason." I don't know how much more we can flesh that out. I know there's, some councils in Ontario are still entirely electronic. I personally think a lot of the decisions the federal government have made have been less than stellar, and this is my opinion, because it's electronic and you don't have that opportunity to work together. So I'm not going to support this amendment, but it does not mean that I am not open to further discussion on how we can flesh this out and figure out a way to make it work. I think it's too broad right now to have for any reason. I think we need to clarify that and work that through. So I'm not supporting this, but it doesn't mean that I'm not open to the idea of working this out further, perhaps at a later time or even through discussion this evening. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Councillor McDermott. I just want to echo what Councillor Dubanow said. The lack, for any reason, I'm not for that at all. I think something is lost when we're not in the same room. I think that the decreased interaction between council and staff, and I can understand staff not wanting to, they have answer one question in 3 hours. That's not I think a good use of their time, so I can understand the friendly amendment, but for us just not to be here because we choose to be in our home, I think something's going to be lost in that. The other thing too is that we can't stop home distractions that occur. I mean, like the telephone rings, the dog barks, somebody comes to the door. Your attention is divided when you're home to other things happening in the home, and I think that's to me that's a given. And my kids aren't home anymore, and I don't have any pets. But no, so I'm not going to support that. I think it's important for us to get together. Thank you.
Councillor Zanko.
Thank you. And I do appreciate everyone's opinion. Just for consideration, there is an election coming up, and there's a number of individuals that might be considering running for the election but feel that, they need that bit more flexibility. We're always encouraging more the youth to come forward. The main purpose of this, I mean, I have a small remainder of my term. I will plan on coming here in person for the remaining portion of my term. My thoughts is this may allow, maybe some mothers that felt like they aren't comfortable leaving their home, but they have a home office and they can still, in occasionally participate in council meetings from home, or there's so many different scenarios. And I know personally, I've always wondered why during an election season we don't see more candidates, primarily youthful candidates, coming forward. And I think that could be one of the main reasons. But I absolutely respect where you stand on this. And, quite honestly, this decision doesn't impact me personally, but I did want you to consider that.
Councillor Butler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't agree with Councillor Dubanow or with Councillor Noyes. I think that the time has come that flexibility in the workplace is here. It's here to stay, and we have to progress as leaders to understand that hybrid meetings mean more capabilities by the individuals that are caught in a situation beyond their control, such as traveling on business, being able to attend the meeting remotely, just because, we may be in Ottawa 1 week with clients, but have the evenings free to conduct business for town council. I think it's unrealistic to think that modern times isn't upon us. I think that we really should give consideration to the fact that hopefully the new round of councillors will be slightly more youthful. Not to say that anybody that is my age or beyond isn't busy as well, because I certainly am busy 24/7 in my operations. And the flexibility to be able to have a meeting at home, sometimes when we know that these meetings are going to be lengthy to 11:30 p.m. is more convenient than sitting around a council chamber and then having to drive home late at night as well. Further to that, yes, there may be some disruptions at home, but there may not be. And there are just as many distractions here as well. But to Councillor Dubanow's point, being present takes place either electronically or in person. That's something within an individual to be able to analyze a situation wherever they are. You do not have to be physically with each other to be able to be present. So those are my comments for now. I'll reserve to speak again. Thanks.
Your Worship.
Thank you, Chair. I deliberately didn't broaden the scope of the motion because I have a lot of concerns about meetings that take place other than person to person. And it may be that it's more convenient for members of council if it's Zoom, and I don't discount the fact that technology is creating these opportunities for people to conduct that type of business. My belief is that there will be members of the public that will be more comfortable Zooming into a meeting. My belief is also that those who want to get across a point most effectively and most forcefully will be people who will show up and want to look at us and want us to see them. I can't imagine a public meeting that would have had as much effectiveness as the Rebstock meeting if those people had been Zooming in. We've all spent a lot of time doing Zoom meetings. I've spent twice as much time doing Zoom meetings because of regional council. And it's, they've passed a resolution, or they're about to, they did pass a resolution to modify their rules to permit wide open attendance by Zoom. I don't think that works at all. In my experience, when you want issues to move forward, you really have, it's all about people. It's all about relationships. It's about person-to-person relationships. You cannot effectively gauge an individual in a box. It's very difficult. I shouldn't say you can't. I think you're quite correct, Councillor Butler. There are mechanisms, there are ways of doing that. But if I was a member of the public and I was showing up at a public meeting and I had 7 members of council that were going to be making a decision that was going to affect my neighborhood, I want to see them. I don't want to be looking at them in a box. I want to see them in person. I want them to know that I'm here telling them what I think about the decision that they're going to have to make. So this list here, this isn't, I'll acknowledge that it's maybe not a finite list, and maybe there's some work, as Councillor Dubanow says, that you could look at this. When the region decided that it was going to go with complete electronic meetings for members of council, I indicated that I would prefer that there at least be some provision that a councillor show up for some portion of the meetings in person. I think it was 1 in 3 meetings or something of that nature, which to me doesn't seem unreasonable. And this is a body where people do have to travel. People from Fort Erie, Waynfleet, they have to travel a fair distance to get to the regional council meetings. It's not quite the same for us, but individuals who want to speak to us, if they've got a travel challenge, then, or a mobility challenge, they can speak to us. That may not be their preference and it may not be the best, but that's what they can do. But my view is that if you're an elected official, you need to be out there. It's not, and maybe that's an old-fashioned view of elected office, but it seems to me that people should be able to see us, they should be able to hear us, they should be able to look us right in the eye and know where they stand. And I don't think that can be done digitally at all times for all purposes. I think that there are occasions when it makes sense. And as I said, this may not be an exhaustive list. And we can look at that as Councillor Dubanow has suggested, but that's why I didn't include it in my provision. That's why I won't support the amendment. And I take some comfort in knowing that the youngest member of council agrees with me.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to touch on that with being the youngest member of council here, I've had, to my dismay at times, quite a bit of experience with social media. And social media, when it came out, was hailed as a way to be connected, to be able to, stay in touch with your family and your friends. And I think it goes without saying that with every good idea, there's always a danger of problems arising. And I think, certainly Twitter, I think, falls within this category, but Facebook as well. It can be a nasty place at times. Those are actual people on the other side of that computer screen that you're communicating with. And when you see the vitriol and everything else that goes on, when you're sitting behind a computer screen, it dehumanizes the situation. You're looking at a screen, and it, yes, there may be another, person on the other side, but you don't see that person. Human beings are social creatures. We look at body language. We look at, there's all sorts of stuff that goes on, and that goes to the decision making. And I would hate to see deliberative bodies like these where we take important issues in the municipality and important issues that affect residents on a day-to-day basis, and I would hate to see it turn into something, and I'm not saying it will, and I want to make it very clear, that's not what I'm assuming here, but I would hate to see it even move down that road of where social media was such a great idea, and we were going to come together, and it was going to connect us all electronically, and every single community group that I was a member of, I have now left because of the way not only I get treated, but the way I see other people in the community treated. And these are actual human beings on the other side of that computer screen that you're communicating with. And I'm worried if, as much as we have learned and seen what the pandemic has done and you know, have effectively been able to do these things together remotely, I'm afraid we have grown a little complacent with that remoteness. And I think it's time that we figure out a way to make both work and to not go down that same road we've seen with our social connections through, you know, the social media aspect. I don't want to see that for governance. I just think it leads to just divisive councils, lack of human connection. It's not to say that we cannot have people working remotely. I agree that that is a necessity and it has to happen. I do not want to see, and this is happening in some other municipalities where you'll never have a councillor show up in chambers again. And I think that would be so unfortunate because this body works so well together. I personally think we have a great relationship. This council is what kept me going through the pandemic, and I appreciate all of that. And I'm thrilled to be back in this chamber with all of you together. And I would hate to think, running for the next term of council, if I'm successfully elected, that there's a councillor who would never show up to this body. I think that would be truly unfortunate. I think it would be an experience they would lose out on. So I think we just need to tweak it more than saying, you know, for any reason. I think the mayor mentioning, you know, maybe, you know, a third of the meetings, 2/3 of the meeting. I think we can flesh that out and figure something out to give that flexibility. But I mean, I'm trying to speak passionately here about why I feel about this, but that's why I can't support it. Not in that form. We can work something out better than that, at least in my opinion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Butler?
Yeah, no, you know, this shouldn't be politicized, and that's what we're doing here. Social media is quite different than attending meetings through Zoom. I get the reference of dehumanizing members of council, and I don't agree with that. I think that many meetings are very successful to get on Zoom, accomplish what the goal is, and get it done. If somebody is running for council and they have no desire to set foot into a chamber on a personal level, well then shame on them. This should be really used as an opportunity for those instances where you are going to be away on business and there is an important discussion that's taking place and you want to weigh in on that, then you should have that ability and that right to do so. That is your right. It's unfortunate that this position as a councillor doesn't pay enough to be able to support you. Us, if it did, we'd be probably talking differently, but it doesn't, and you need a full-time job to be able to, in this economic state that we're in, to be able to provide for not only yourself, but your family or your animals. You know? So I think that we have to be open-minded to the fact that we are in the marketplace. We're not hiding behind a keyboard. We're not hiding behind a screen. We are interacting with the general public. I take exception to that notion from the mayor, that's what it would end up being like, and I don't believe that that's true. I think that if you want to put some parameters in place, then put some parameters in place. But at the end of the day, we have to get with the times here, and we have to be open-minded and accept the fact that we are in a changing environment. We aren't going back to the way it was, and we have to be open to various means of communication, and if that means that we have the ability to zoom in, then by all means, zoom in, weigh in on what's happening, and it's not going to take away from what you see and how a person reacts. What you see in person and what you see on camera are the same things. The only difference is that you are seeing it remotely and not seeing it in person. That's my 2 cents. So I would suggest that perhaps Councillor Zanko might want to put some parameters in place, and I would support that. Thank you.
Councillor Zanko?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to put some additional things in place as far as, you know, a councillor would have to be in person for a certain amount of meetings, you know, and I'm fine with that. Again, just a reminder, if you look at the private sector is going this way. There's a lot of companies that think that hybrid is more effective. Personally, I've had the best 2 years of my career in the past 2 years working remotely. So, you know, just something to consider. But, you know, I should have asked this question when the mayor's motion was still on the floor as well. If you require 48 hours notice to the clerk, but I wake up on Monday morning not feeling well, how is that going to work?
You don't, that's what it was in September.
Okay.
But no, you just have to give, this will be set up for hybrid, as I understand it, the clerk has indicated this will be set up for hybrid meetings. So if at the last minute you're not feeling well or something comes up, somebody in your family isn't feeling well, if you call in and explain that, then you can zoom in.
Okay, good. But yeah, back to Councillor Butler's point, I'm happy to, you know, put some additional requirements in place. Again, I respect everybody's opinion on this. I just really think that we need to be more open about this. So whether my colleagues feel that it's best to have, you know, every third meeting that the councillor has to show up in person, or I'm totally willing to make that adjustment.
Councillor Noyes?
Thank you, Councillor McDermott. I'm just counting the number of months we have left until the new council gets voted in. I think we're talking about 12 to 15 meetings. I do support the mayor's motion, and I would consider an amendment in regards to or an exception that if you're working out of town or something and you want to zoom in, I think that should be an exception. But other than that, I think you're just diluting it too much. I think, you know, as a council, we're a body, and if our pieces are all different places, I think you lose that connectivity. So I would support, if you're away from home for work purposes. I think when you're on vacation, you should be on vacation. So I'm not going to add that, because then people are going to expect us to come when we're on vacation. But I would see that. But other than that, I think the other exceptions or the other opportunities you have to zoom in are quite adequate. And if the new council coming in wants to change it, so be it.
Anybody else? Your Worship?
Councillor Lubberts.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councillor Lubberts?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just out of curiosity to the clerk, when we start our new term of council, is it not in the Municipal Act that we have to declare where our meetings will be held? Don't we have to make a resolution that meetings will be held at one municipal drive?
It's in
Center Drive or whatever.
through your worship or your chair. It's in the Municipal Act that our procedural bylaw needs to provide where our meetings will be held.
So once we've done that, right, is it in our rules of procedure? So we'd have to waive or we'd have to amend our rules of procedure?
It's in our rules of procedure, and the electronic participation is currently in our rules of procedure in accordance with the Municipal Act.
So now we have to follow the Municipal Act, so wouldn't we have to wait till the Municipal Act is amended to allow virtual meetings?
Through the chair, the Municipal Act was amended in 2020 to allow for electronic meetings.
Yeah, for
and
the
that is why
pandemic.
our procedures were changed in September of 2020.
Yeah, due to the pandemic.
No.
But now they're moving forward to...
No, Chair, if I may, in March of 2020, when the pandemic originally started, the Municipal Act was amended only for the purposes of the pandemic. It was just later in the year, before September, that it was amended once more that allowed councils to amend their procedures again to provide for electronic meetings whenever they felt that it was necessary.
Oh, okay, all right.
Anything further? Your worship?
Yeah, if it helps at all, I would consider it a friendly amendment to add a fifth item, which is if you're required to work out of town. And my seconder says he's agreeable, so that would be a friendly amendment.
Any comments or question on that? So then we'll vote on the friendly amendment?
No.
Or not yet?
That's a friendly amendment, so it just
So it's
becomes
okay. So we'll vote on the amended motion. Well, you have to add it to the motion, don't you?
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
deal.
All in favor?
Okay, so just so there's clarity, what are we voting on? The
We're
amendment?
voting on your motion now.
No, we
Because
have to-
I just,
If, no, the amendment about work from, if you have to work out of town, that's a friendly amendment. We don't have to vote on that, because the seconder is agreeable with that. But there's still Councillor Zanko's amendment on the floor.
so we'll vote on Councillor Zanko's original amendment. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. So now, I mean, defeated, I'm sorry. You always interfere with me, and I always get
Magic.
confused. So let's, okay, am I okay to do the
Been
motion
watching
now?
Too often.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed, if any? You know which one. Carried.
That was good.
Back to you.
Okay. So we are, Councillor Butler, you have a motion that's going to come forward May the 30th. Okay. Are there any notices of motion? Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to give notice of motion for the federal government to discontinue the ArriveCan app at land border crossings and to begin the process of dismantling public health measures at border crossings, Your Worship. That'll be returnable on May 30th.
By which time there's a good chance some of that will have already taken place.
I hope so. My record is good.
So discontinue ArriveCan and
Begin the process of removing public health measures at the border. Related to COVID. Thank you, Councillor Noyes. COVID measures might be better for the notice if that's just better for clarification.
Okay, any other notices of motion? Okay, that takes us to consideration of bylaws, and I would like to deal separately with bylaw 43, 2022, which is the appointment of the chief administrative officer, because I think that should be dealt with other than in a whole package. So Councillor Zanko, you have the resolution for first and second reading of the bylaw package?
Yes, I do, and I can remove that one. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDermott, that bylaw package containing 39-2022 to appoint temporary municipal law enforcement officer for the 2022 summer season, 40-2022 to delegate authority of the purpose of approving the extension of roadwork, water mains, and sewers, and for the execution of development agreements and servicing agreements related to such extensions bylaw 53975, 6806, and 66/2016. 41-2022 to authorize the execution of an amending subdivision agreement with Crystal Beach Estates, Jose Marquez, Elizabeth Road subdivision. 2022 to set the 2022 tax rates and to levy taxes for the year of 2022. 43-2022 to appoint Chris McQueen as Chief Administrative Officer. Oh, sorry,
That one we're
that's,
doing
yeah. That's removed. 44, 2022, to amend zoning bylaw number 12990, housekeeping amendment. Bylaw 45, 2022, to authorize the entry into a license agreement with the Crystal Beach Business Improvement Area Board of Management, Farmers Market, Queen Circle. 46, 2022, to accept and dedicate parkland 3399 North Shore Drive, Cider. Mayor, I actually have to declare a conflict with this.
Okay, so we'll remove that from the package as well, and you can just finish off what you've got there.
Is given first and second reading.
Okay, all those in favor? None opposed, that is carried.
Wait, any questions?
Yeah, after we get it on the floor. Now it's on the floor, now you get to ask questions. And I should point out that Bylaw 42, 2022 was amended, which was part of the addendum, and the 46, 2022, well, we're going to deal with that separately. Go ahead, Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. I just wanted to make a comment on Bylaw 45, 2022, the licensing agreement with the Crystal Beach Business Improvement Area Board of Management, the Farmers Market. I have no problem with the licensing, but I'm just wondering what restrictions are going to be put on where the alcohol can be carried, because this has to deal with allowing them to have a liquor license, right, that they can sell alcohol.
I think this is for the farmer's market, which is going to be in Queen's Circle, and I don't know if there's a liquor license component. I don't believe for the farmer's market. You're thinking maybe of the supper market?
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of it.
There's also an event that they're hoping to hold in May at Bay Beach. And again, that will be the subject of an agreement. But this is the farmer's market.
Okay, so if the farmer's market isn't looking to sell alcohol, that's fine. My concern would have been that no glass containers be allowed, and the other thing that we restrict where the drinks can be carried, because I know there's a pretty open market now where you can, if you can buy it in a park and you can walk down the road, so to speak. That's all. But I'm sorry if it's not part of that. I just thought it was. Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Jansen, are you familiar with this issue? Anyone here? Clerk? I'm pretty sure this is just the farmer's market, which is what it's referred to as. And it talks about Queen's Circle. So I don't believe there's any liquor there. Any other questions, Councillor Noyes? Anyone else? Then Councillor Lubberts, could you proceed with third and final reading for the package with the exception of 43, 2022, and 46, 2022 that we'll deal with separately?
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Redekop. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that bylaws number 39, 2022, 40, 2022, 41, 2022, 42, 2022, 44, 2022, and 45, 2022 are given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor under the corporate seal, the mayor and the clerk.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. So, Councillor Zanko, you have to indicate what the pecuniary interest is.
Yes, my son works for Cider Brothers.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. So if you could proceed with first and second reading for bylaw 4322, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDermott, that bylaw number 43, 2022, to appoint Chris McQueen as Chief Administrative Officer and Deputy Clerk for the Town of Fort Erie, and to repeal bylaw number 21, 2022, is given first and second reading.
Thank you. All those in favor? Unopposed, that is carried. And Councillor Lubberts, third and final reading for bylaw 43, 2022.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Redekop. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDermott, that bylaw number 43-2022 is given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and the clerk under the corporate seal.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Unopposed, that is carried. And let's see. Councillor Dubanow, I wonder if you would move 46, 2022. Councillor McDermott, you were the seconder for first and second reading on these. Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott. That Bylaw 46-2022 to accept and dedicate parkland, or my apologies. No, that's correct. Yep. To accept and dedicate parkland at 3399 North Shore Drive, Cider Brothers Builders Limited is given first and second reading.
All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Lubberts, third and final reading, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Redekop. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that bylaw number 46-2022 is given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and the clerk under the corporate seal.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. That takes us then to the confirmatory bylaw. And Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Noyes, that bylaw number 47-2022 to confirm the actions of council at its, my apologies, to confirm the actions of council at its council and committee meetings held on April 4th, 2022, April 11th, 2022, special council and committee meeting held on April 19th, 2022, and council meeting held on April 25th, 2022 is given first and second reading.
All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Councillor Zanko, you have third and final reading.
Yes, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDermott, that bylaw number 47-2022 is given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and the clerk under the corporate seal.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. That takes us to scheduling of meetings. Councillor Dubanow, then Councillor Noyes.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. The Planning and Development Services Business Subcommittee meeting is next Wednesday, so that's May 9th, and that's at 5 o'clock here at Town Hall in Conference Room 1, and that's a Wednesday.
May 11th.
Sorry, I'm looking at my calendar here, and it's all wrong.
At 3, I've got...
Sorry, no, it's May 4th, Your Worship. My apologies.
Okay, so so I've got it in my schedule as the 11th, but it's perhaps changed.
I'll double check that right now. Just give me 1 second.
Oh yeah, no, you know what? I've got them both down. Okay, it is the 4th.
Okay.
At 5 p.m.?
Yeah, 5 p.m. here in Conference Room 1.
Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. There's an accessibility committee meeting tomorrow, the 26th, at 4 p.m. in Conference Room 1. There's also another meeting at the Fort Erie Non-for-Profit Housing is going to be on Wednesday, the 27th at noon at the Barrel. It's our annual general meeting and our monthly meeting.
And any others? There's an Affordable Housing Committee meeting on Wednesday, April the 27th at 9:30. And that is in Conference Room 1. I don't think so, because it's not a committee of council. Yeah. And that's because we can't, because of the provincial legislation. So that's maybe something we should change. Try to change. Okay, if there are no other meetings, Councillor Dubanow, you have the motion to adjourn.
I do, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Noyes that council adjourns at 8:59 p.m. to reconvene into a regular meeting of council on May 30th, 2022.
All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you all.